obviously a lot of it is for high-level officiating, but anything that gives us information about officiating is good. So to me, that was all good. And they had this thing where they talked about the first 2 minutes of a game, the first 5 minutes of a game and the last 2 minutes of a game, about the importance of those sections. Now, the first thing I said, hi, come on in. First thing I said when somebody looked at that this morning, I said, there's 33 other minutes in the game, and I'm not saying they're not important. Come on in. If it's a 40-minute game, all 40 minutes are important. If it's a 32-minute game, all 32 minutes are important. When you start the game, those first few minutes of the game, first 5 minutes of the game, they set the tone for how the game is going to be officiated. Right? So it is important. If we make mistakes right off the bat, it doesn't set a good tone if you can get off to a good start. Now, part of that is sometimes it's what the teams will do. Like some teams will come out, the game will start, you're like 3 or 4 minutes into it, there hasn't been a foul, there hasn't been a violation, they're just playing, and that's great. So if you're a newer official and you find yourself like in a game where it's been 3 or 4 minutes and you haven't blown the whistle, like up and down, up and down, up and down, and you start wondering, am I doing my job? Like I'm not blowing the whistle, there are no fouls. Don't worry, that's what we want. Like when that happens, like just say, hey, I'm doing a good job. I'm not calling stuff that doesn't need to go. Some games almost referee themselves. Like it's almost sometimes like when you go to the playground, you don't need referees. Like it's almost like they just want to play. So when you have those games, don't start thinking, well, I haven't made a call in 4 minutes. So then as soon as you see a little bump, I call a foul, just because you feel you have to insert yourself into the game. No, don't do that. Let the game go. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have other games where you're constantly going to be having to blow the whistle. So those games that have a nice flow, enjoy them while you have. Because there's a lot of games, it's not going to be like that. Right? The game's going to start, and it's going to be a turnover, and a foul, and a travel, and you deal with that as well. But if you can get off to a good start, in terms of what you're calling, what you're not calling, it's really good. One of the things that I got from this session, the guys at Ref Masters, can you read that from the back, by the way? They put something they call the referee rubric. So being the teacher that I am, or the retired teacher I am, I'm like, oh, rubrics. I wasn't always a big fan of those. But they're good for something. And here they got like all the principles, well, not all the principles, but many principles of officiating, and sort of like a rubric of like 101. So, so as coverage as a team, you make calls in your primary. Like that's the basics, open, close looks, positive crew dynamics, sequence plays together. So as you go to the right, it just becomes more advanced. So like 401 would be like, you've kind of mastered that part. Nobody ever mastered officiating. You try to work with that. So all of these things, we can all do these things. Like when we referee and there's 2 officials, we're all capable of making calls in our primary, right? So those of you who are new, I'm sure you know that in 2-person officiating, you always have a trail and a lead, and we have coverage. We've talked about that a little bit in the last couple of weeks. You make the calls in your primary. The trail calls the primary, the lead calls the primary. Now sometimes you have to call out of your primary, or there's certain areas on the floor, generally the key, where it's a shared area, right? So both the trail and the lead can make calls. But you make calls in your primary. You look at open looks versus closed looks. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago with when Ryan was doing his presentation. He had some very good information. I did a game a couple of days after, and in our pregame we talked, and I asked my partner, I said, do you know what the difference between a closed look and an open look is? Like, wasn't 100% sure. So if you're not sure, like, don't be afraid to ask questions to myself or to others. But generally speaking, I'll have some pictures here in a few minutes. We'll talk about what it looks like when you're a referee, what's a closed look and an open look. But generally speaking, it's like if I take a shot and there's a defender there with the arm, and the defender hits me on the forearm, from where you're sitting, you can tell that the defender hits me on the forearm. But if I'm shooting this way and the defender is here, it's going to be more difficult to see if is my hand touching my forearm there, or is it just close, or, right? It's hard to tell from there. From here, that's an open look. You have a perfect angle to see. Do I hit there, do I hit there, do I hit the elbow? When I'm shooting this way, and you're there, it's harder to see. It's even worse if you're this way, right? So if I'm shooting from there and somebody's got their hand here, you can't tell if they're just close to the elbow or if they're hitting the elbow. When you have the right angle, that's an open look. So these are all concepts, and I won't go through all of these, by the way. These are all concepts that they talk about when they do their sessions, and then they apply them according to whatever topics when they're talking about the first 5 minutes of the game. They said, these are the principles that we use. We make the calls in our primary for the most part. We call what we can see. We call open looks, and we don't guess when we have a closed look. We have a positive crew dynamics. We trust our partners. That's going to be one of our themes tonight, trusting your partner. And we sequence plays together. So there's a few things that I'm going to talk about tonight that maybe you've heard about, maybe you haven't, like sequencing plays that will come up again. So I'm not going to explain it now. And then you can see all the others. So obviously covering is important, making sure we cover the plays. Right place, right time. As a referee, if you get to the spot, you have a better chance of making the correct call. You constantly have to adjust your positions. I kind of joke with Tim that slow pitch umpires don't always move a lot. I remember one time I saw a slow pitch game. The umpire, he had a spot about, I would say, 2 or 3 feet, and that was how he umpired the whole game. Out, safe, didn't matter if the call was at third, at first, at second, whatever. That was the spot. I'm like, he has found the ideal spot to umpire a softball game. That is the spot. I'm sure that's not the answer. He was just lazy. So there is no perfect spot. When you're refereeing, you can be in the perfect position here for 2 seconds. And as soon as that ball moves, you might be in the worst position. So you constantly, now sometimes adjusting only means taking 1 step to the right. And that does the trick. But there is no perfect spot on the floor. And then as Ryan talked about a couple weeks ago, when you find that spot, so when you move with a purpose, and then you're stationary. So if you have to make a call, hopefully you're not moving. And that may last 2 seconds, or it may last 5 seconds. Then you may have to move again. And then the ball gets turned over, so you have to run to the other end. So obviously you're gonna have to move a lot. But if you can move to the right spot and then be stationary before you make a call, that's kind of like the key. Eyes on the play. So that's important. When we say eyes on the play, we don't mean eyes on the ball. Eyes on the play means you're watching what you're supposed to be watching. If both officials or all 3 officials are watching the ball, that's not good. Because for those of you who play basketball, and probably everybody in this room has played basketball, except for me, I don't play much basketball, you know that there's a lot going on away from the ball. There are screens that are being set, there are cutters that are sometimes being held, sometimes being pushed. There's someone who wants to go for the ball, push off the defender to get free. Lots of things go on the court. So eyes on the play means that we watch what we're supposed to be watching, which is not always the ball. In fact, it's never the ball. Like even if you're refereeing the dribbler, you're not watching the ball go up and down. You're refereeing the dribbler, that defender, right, not watching the ball. You call with conviction. You know the rules. You don't guess. You don't mind the crowd. In other words, like if the fans get all excited, you don't worry about that. You're always professional. You deal with what you have to deal. You guard the game. Make sure player safety is considered. You look the part. You have a confidence. Refereeing, to be successful, you have to be inside. You have to be extremely confident that you can do the job. But when you're dealing with people, you have to be very humble. And that's sometimes people will have a hard time. Like, how do I not look arrogant? If I have confidence in myself, I don't want to look arrogant. So, but you need to feel that confidence. But if someone questions your call, it's okay to say, hey, I might have gotten that one wrong. I'm not sure. Right? You're humble. You say, and if someone's upset, like you call a foul against a player, and the player says, what did I do wrong? I said, you hit him on the elbow. They said, no, I didn't. Well, I could stay there and say, yeah, you did. And, no, I didn't. Yeah, you did. We could do that all night. So what I'm going to do in that situation, they're like, I felt, that's what I saw. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry. That's what I say. Or if it's like a game that's on tape, I'll say, I'll check the video. Next time I see you, if I got it wrong, I'll apologize, right? Which I will. And if I got it right, I won't. You could go back and say, yeah, right. But you have to be able to say to people, hey, it's possible I got it wrong. And that doesn't not going to affect your confidence, because inside you still know you're getting the majority of the calls right. Like you have that confidence, but you still want to be humble. And it's not about us, right? It's not the game was more important, and that's our next slide. Is that this Ref Masters thing? They have this thing where they talk about what's most important, and they call it the sacred order. So the sacred order is what's most important is the game. Nothing is more important than the game. After that, it's the partners, and after that, it's ourselves. So we put the game first. That's why it's bigger. Then we put our partner or partners, depending if there's 2 or 3 of us, ahead of ours, and then we look at ourselves. And if we take it with that approach, we'll be more successful. Now you'll notice we haven't talked about the first 5 minutes of the game yet. These are things that I think are worth discussing. So they've got a couple of ideas that they put in terms of the game. What I did is there were a couple of things I wanted to talk about, so I kind of underlined a few things that I felt were worth discussing. So what is important is the game, the integrity of the game. And when we referee a basketball game, we are responsible. That's our responsibility, is the integrity of the game. That doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. That's not what integrity means. It means we are 100% committed. We're focused, we're mentally prepared for the game, we're physically prepared for the game, and we do our best. We're still going to make mistakes. So in basketball, there are black and white calls. We make those no matter what. So what would be a black and white call? Somebody steps on the end line. They step out of bounds. When you see them step out of bounds, you make the call. It's black and white. Someone takes a 3-point shot. Their foot is either on the line, it's a 2-point shot, or it's behind the line, it's a 3-point shot. You don't say, well, it was just a little bit on the line. I'm going to call it a 3 just to be a nice guy, right? Like it's black and white. Either it's a 2-point shot or it's a 3-point shot. But not all calls are black and white. A lot of calls are in the gray area, right? And that's where it's really difficult. The gray area is someone drives to the basket and there's contact between the defender and the dribbler. And now we have to judge, is that contact illegal? Or is that contact marginal? That was another term that was used a couple of weeks ago by Ryan. Marginal contact is contact that either there isn't enough of it to be illegal, or maybe it could be illegal, but it doesn't affect the dribbler. So all of us who have refereed have had this situation. Someone is dribbling, they start to drive, they start to go around the defender. The defender puts their hands on the dribbler. We see that, we call a foul. And as soon as we're putting air into the whistle, we realize that the dribbler has already beaten their defender. And now we're calling a foul, and as they're laying it up for a basket, we're saying, no basket, we call the foul up here. And if we'd been a little bit more patient in the gray area, if we had waited a split second, we would have seen that even though the defender did put their hand on the dribbler, it was only for a split second, and it didn't affect the dribbler's RSBQ, rhythm, balance, speed, and quickness. So if it doesn't affect their ability to drive to the basket, you're patient, and then a lot of things are good. The team is happy, they had an open layup. I'm happy, that was one less foul that I needed in the game, and the game flows better. Now, if they put their hands on the dribbler, and it's too much, it affects the dribbler's ability, then we call the foul. And then people are happy. So that's the gray area, and of course, that's where it becomes more difficult. So that's where sequencing plays starts to become an issue, where you have to see enough plays, and you have to make sure that the plays match from end to end. So a simple concept of sequencing a play would be, you're refereeing with a partner, you're the trail, right? So you're the referee who's here. Someone drives to the basket, there is some contact between the defender and the ball carrier. There is no foul called, right? Play continues, we go down to the other end. We have a similar drive down the other end. There is contact between the defender and the dribbler. Similar plays. Now, and I call a foul. How are people gonna react? They're gonna do what they do in the gyms all the time. What about that one? You see people doing that all the time. They're like, well, you call this one, why didn't you call that one? And they have a point. Like, if it's a similar play on this end, we should be calling it the same way. If we call the foul here, and then we have a similar play here, call the foul. If we have a play here and a similar play there, no call, no call. So that's what sequencing plays. So I'm matching what my partner calls. They're not always the same play, though. Joe.
So, question, what, like, we've all been in situations, or we've seen situations where, in that situation, guy drives to the hoop, hands on, we're going to let it go, he misses a shot, then a foul's called. What's what's the time frame where you're like, you should call it, or you want to?
It shouldn't be based on whether the ball went in or not. It should be based on the contact. But sometimes we're patient, and that seems like that's what happens.
Right, but I know there's.
So if you're asking in terms of how long do you wait, you let the play start, develop, and finish. So obviously, if they miss the shot, there's a defensive rebound, an outlet, and then the whistle for the foul.
Yeah.
That's way too late.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
But if we've let the play start, develop, and finish, and the ball is coming off the rim, and we have a whistle, that's probably not too late.
Okay.
So it may look like I'm calling a foul. I was waiting to see if the ball's going in. That may not have been.
Okay.
I know sometimes we do that. Like we'll call it if it doesn't go in. But in theory, that's not how we should be refereeing. We should be refereeing based on if it's illegal contact, we call the foul. And then if they make the basket, it's an N1. Like N1s are not the end of the world. Where we kind of don't like it as referees is when there's like marginal contact. It doesn't seem to affect the dribbler's ability to make the shot, and now we're calling an N1, so that's kind of like, seems like a cheap N1. So, but if we're patient, we'll avoid those marginal calls. So another example of a sequence of plays is you have a drive at one end, the referee calls a block. It's kind of like a close play. Could be a charge, could be a block. And then you have a similar play, maybe next possession or a couple of possessions later, could be a block, could be a charge. That's where you can kind of say, oh, my partner called a block, I call a block. But that only applies if there's similar plays. Like if it's an obvious block on this end and it's an obvious charge on this end, then call the block and call the charge. Like get it correct. But if you're in between, like if it's 50-50 and like I'm not sure if it's, like it's a big crash, so I have to call something, right? Like the defender's moving, it's really close, there's a big crash, we need a whistle. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to call it a block or a charge. If you know that there was a similar play on the other end, that was a block, call it a block. So it looks like we're more consistent. But that doesn't mean that if you call a block on one end, it has to be the next call has to be a block on the other. That's not what we mean. So this is the most important thing is the game and part of the game, and obviously this applies in the late in the game, early in the game, and throughout. Partners, it's important that we understand that our partners are important to the game, and it's important that our partners feel that we trust them. This is really important for officials like myself, who sometimes work with younger officials or less experienced officials. If I start calling all over the place, and my partner starts to think, well, JP doesn't trust me. He doesn't think that I can call the game, so he's calling. So if you are one of the veterans who's working with younger officials, sometimes it's good to call and protect that younger official or less experienced official a little bit, but you can't overdo it, because then your partner starts to think, well, they don't have faith in my ability to make calls. So you have to find that balance, so that if you trust your partners, then the game will be better. And we'll do a section of trusting our partners in terms of it's not always the official who is closest who has the better look. I kind of think that's the case, but it's not always. And then for us, obviously, we're important as well. Like the game is more important than us, but we're important as well. So it's important that we look the part as officials, and it's important that, as I've said before, that we show some humility on the floor. So we have to be extremely confident in our ability, but we have to acknowledge when we make mistakes, or possibly that we made mistakes, and we have to, like, if players and coaches talk to us, we have to respond. Now, if they're yelling at us, if they're being disrespectful, we're not going to be having conversations. That's a subject for my part 3, in terms of, like, if somebody's yelling, somebody's complaining, then you deal with it through warnings, technical fouls, all that stuff. But one thing you'll have in basketball, and those of you who played, you've probably done this with the referee. Somebody calls a foul, you don't think you fouled it. You go to the referee, what did I do wrong? And if you've never done that, like, if you're still playing, do that to a referee at some point. If they call a foul that you don't agree with, go very quietly when they're shooting free throws, hey ref, what did I do wrong? If they can't give you a correct answer, a good answer, that means they don't know, they guessed, right?
I got attacked for doing that once.
Eh?
I got attacked for doing that.
How did you say that to the referee?
Nicely, honestly.
Yeah,
Just like, okay, now.
And had you been complaining before?
What? No.
No? Okay.
He wasn't happy.
So, I guarantee you it wasn't me.
No, it wasn't. I don't think there's anyone in this room. There's a high chance it could be.
And I'm not disagreeing that can happen, right? It shouldn't happen, but it can. The other thing that we talk about in terms of officials is we're all human. So sometimes we make decisions based on, there's things that, like, maybe your coach had been complaining, so he's all stressed with that, and then you're coming in and it's like, oh, that's the last straw, right? Even though you haven't said anything all game. But no, even if you had been complaining, if you go to a referee and ask, what did I do wrong? That's a legitimate question.
Yeah. And
it should be able to be answered very quickly. You weren't in a legal guarding position when you tried to take charge. You hit him on the elbow. Whatever it was. Hand checking. You may not agree with the answer, but there should be an answer. And if they can't give you an answer, like, don't say, oh, you can't give me an answer. Don't say that, because now you're, like, creating animosity. But it'd be a sign that, okay, that's not a referee I'm probably going to talk to again, because that referee probably doesn't want to talk to me, or doesn't know what they're doing. And so we don't want to be that one. That's why we're here. We're trying to learn. So it's important that we acknowledge that we've made a mistake, or we possibly made a mistake, and we are humble in how we deal with people, while keeping that confidence. Looking the part obviously means that if you're going to go on the court, you have to have a shirt, you have to have black pants, should have black shoes. Sometimes when we start out, we don't have. That's part of it. But looking the part is also all the other things that we do in refereeing, like our signals and how we blow the whistle. So for the new officials, when we go on in the gym, like, we'll actually spend some time, like, how do you blow the whistle? It seems like it should be obvious, like somebody gives you a whistle, you blow into it, yeah. But referees blow the whistle a certain way, and if you don't look the part. Like, if you're the one referee who goes into the gym and blows the whistle different than all the others, you don't fit in. So you have to make sure you look the part. Your signals have to be crisp so that you look the part. And when you do that, there's going to be a certain trust that maybe people will have. Obviously, if your calls aren't good and you look the part, not great, but if your calls are decent, you look the part, all of those things will give the participants, the coaches and the players the idea that you know what you're doing. In terms of the first 5 minutes themselves, it's important to get the game off to a good start. So something as simple as a jump ball. In FIBA, we only have one jump ball per game. Well, I guess you could have two. For those of you who are new referees, how could you have two jump balls in a game? If you're a new referee, I want you to tell me how we could have two jump balls in a game. Yes, sir?
There's overtime?
No, there's no jump ball in overtime. You use the possession arrow. So you've learned something tonight. There's no jump ball in overtime. Yes?
If it doesn't go at least decently straight up.
Okay, so you could choose to say, oh, I threw it sideways, so we're going to re-jump it. That's one possibility. You'd have two back-to-back. Any other reasons? Joel?
Ball went off out of bounds, you could double.
Possibly, yeah. If the jump ball went off out of bounds, you would re-jump it. Now, if you've played 5 minutes and the ball goes out of bounds and you don't know who touched the glass, That's a jump ball, but you're not jumping it, you're just going with the arrow. But the actual jump ball, like throwing up by the referee, you could have, as somebody mentioned, a bad, so if it's not straight, you might jump it. The other thing happens, you throw it, the ball comes loose, and there's a jump ball right away. Like nobody got possession, so two people have tied it up to not have to jump it again, because you can't go to the arrow because you never set the arrow to begin the game. So there's a couple of possibilities. But start the game off with a nice looking jump ball, and don't screw the first possession arrow like I did the other day. Yes?
Does the clock reset if the initial jump ball is messed up?
No.
So you
Whatever,
do
2
the
seconds
jump
went
ball.
off, you would leave it on. If you have to do a second jump ball, you're not going to reset the game ball. The arrow to be set in the right direction. Now I say the arrow, a lot of gyms there is no arrow. There's supposed to be, by rule, there's supposed to be an arrow at the table. Either like an arrow that flips one way or an electronic one that goes back and forth. Most gyms do not have it. If they do, use it. And some gyms use the arrow that's on the score clock, like on the wall somewhere. If they have it, use it. A lot of officials, there's a lot of gyms where there is no arrow anywhere on the clock. So a lot of officials find a way. Some people use like this, and then they switch arms on the next, or they have a coin, and they take the coin from one pocket and they put it in the other pocket. And whatever you have to do to figure out when we have a jump ball, which way. But find a system that works for you. And most importantly, don't forget when you have a jump ball, like if you're switching pockets, don't forget to switch the pockets, because the next time you have a jump ball, then you're gonna. But even if there was an arrow at the table, you could have a mistake. I remember being at a game one time, there was a jump ball, there was an arrow at the table, they looked, it was red ball, so they give it to red. 30 seconds later, there was another jump ball. They looked at the table, the arrow was pointing to red, they give it back to red. Then there was another jump ball, they looked at the table, it was pointing to red. They gave it to red enough. They gave it to red 3 times in a row, because the people at the table weren't switching the arrow. I'm not blaming the people at the table on that one. Like, we've got to be on top of that. Like, we're the referees. Like, we're the ones that are getting paid. At the table, they're probably not getting paid. If they forget, gosh, right? So, and the other thing I don't like is somebody calls a jump ball and they're doing this. Okay, yeah, okay, so it's white ball, yeah. And then 20 seconds later, they call it, and then, yeah, it's blue ball. Like, it was 20 seconds ago. Why do you have to check your pocket to see, like, be focused. If you have a jump ball and 20 seconds later have another jump ball, yeah, it's going the other way. Now, do all of us point the wrong direction at some point? Yeah, it happens to everybody, but try to focus on that. So get off to the right way. Loving our first whistle. That first whistle is important. If you start off with like a bad call, a marginal call, it's not good. So if there's 2 officials or 3 officials, everybody's first whistle should be one that they go back and say, hey, that was a good whistle. You get off good. And if you don't have a whistle for 5 minutes, that's okay. When you do have one, it should be a good one. You sequence plays, we've already talked about that, so you get idea of like calling it consistently both ends. You avoid marginal calls. You do that for the first 5 minutes, you've set the tone that we're going to call what's needed. Yeah. When there are fouls, we're going to call fouls. When there are travels, we're going to call travels. But we're not going to just blow the whistle to blow the whistle. And that's always a good thing. A couple of things about the final 2 minutes. So, if you look at these things, you could argue that these things we should know these things, most of these things all game long. Like if you look at the clock, like how much time is remaining on the clock, you should always have an idea how much time is remaining on the clock. Like halfway through the first quarter, you should have an idea. You may not know, like if the whistle blows and you have the ball in your hands, you may not know exactly how much time, but if you look at the clock, there's 5 minutes left. There's 5 minutes left. You have an idea. But in the last 2 minutes, it becomes even more important that we know how much time is remaining. Because the mistakes that we make are magnified. Obviously, if it's not a close game, not quite the same thing. But the closer the game, the more those things are important. I've got a question for you. Has anyone ever had this situation happen? It's towards the end of the first quarter or second quarter, and somebody is taking a shot. And as they're releasing the shot, the horn goes to end the period. And you had no idea that the horn was going to go. Has anyone ever had that experience? I have. Most of us have had that experience. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. If they're taking a shot and you hear the horn and you weren't expecting the horn, like you're going like, what's that now? Why are they blowing the horn? Like they're not blowing the horn, the period ended. But I wasn't aware. So now I have to make a decision. If the ball goes in, I have to make a decision. Does it count? Does it not count? If you know, like if you've checked the clock and you're like, okay, there's 7 seconds left. 7 seconds. 7 seconds later, as they're taking the shot, you know the horn is coming. It's either going to come while it's still in their hands or the horn's going to go right after it's released. And because you're aware, better chance of getting the call right. So this is important all game long. But in the last 2 minutes, very important. How much time is on the shot clock? Okay. All game long. We should be aware of that, especially important towards the end. Timeouts, really important towards the end of the game. If a team has 1 timeout left, 2 timeouts left, that affects how the coach is going to sort of manage the last 2 minutes of the game. Will they be looking for a timeout? Going back to the table operators who sometimes forget to put the possession arrow in the right direction. The table operators oftentimes do not have a lot of experience. So what happens is late in the game, a coach will want a timeout. In FIBA, if a coach wants a timeout, if I'm the coach, the table is there, I go to the table and I say timeout. And if it's right after the opponent score, they're supposed to blow the horn, stop the game right away, and give the timeout. They're not always on top of that. So as we as referees, if we're aware, we can help the table. Like we can stop the game, say, yeah, coach wants a timeout. If not, then sometimes the coach, if a coach wants a timeout and they can't get it halfway through the third period, they might be a little frustrated. If they want a timeout with 7 seconds left in the game and we miss it, they're really going to be upset. So the last 2 minutes, everything is magnified. Can a team advance the ball? So we have to know the rules, right? So we haven't done any sessions on the rules yet, but we will. But anybody who's here who hasn't refereed before, doesn't have a lot of experience refereeing, you don't need me to study the rules. You just need to know how to read and maybe have a slight understanding. You just go online, like Jeff had mentioned the IRS stuff with the all the FIBA documents. All the FIBA documents are online. So if you need to know these rules, and there's a rule change regarding advancing the ball this year, so this is important. Fouls. Again, is a team in penalty? I would say that's important throughout the game. I always want to know when a team gets to 4 fouls, the next foul will be the team penalty. Really important down the stretch. Partly for our knowledge, but also if a team is in penalty, they may foul, stop the clock. Or if they're not in penalty, they may foul because they know that they've got a foul to give. I don't know if everyone is familiar with the expression of foul to give. Like in the NBA games, the announcers talk about that all the time. The teams have a foul to give. So if we have 3 team fouls, we know that next foul is not going to put the team in the bonus or in penalty. So you may choose to foul just because you have one to give. So all of those things are important. Knowing the score. Again, the score in the second quarter, sometimes there'll be a timeout in the second quarter and I'll be like, oh, I wonder what the score is. Like, I think this team is up by 10. And then I look, oh, actually it's a tie game. Like, in my mind, like one team should have been up. But does it really matter in the second quarter if I don't know the exact score? Not that much. The last 2 minutes, I have to know the score because it will affect whether a team fouls on purpose or not. It will affect if they perhaps are going to use a timeout. All of these things become more important. And then all the other things that we talked about in the first 5 minutes, you don't want to have a marginal call. You really don't want to have a marginal call in the last 2 minutes, right? You want to make sure that you don't guess. So I think this is the last slide of this section. In the last 2 minutes, here are some really important things. Stay poised. Really important that if we've had a good game, that we stay calm, because, just because the game is close and it's the end, we don't wanna change what we've been doing. We keep adjusting our position, make sure we have open looks. This is not the time to be guessing, all right? So I would say it's never a good time to guess, but in two-person officiating, there's times where you kind of have to guess, because you're like I didn't get the perfect angle. But if I'm guessing, I'd rather guess I'd rather guess that it wasn't a foul than guess that it was a foul. So like, if I have to guess, I'm probably guessing I'm not gonna call anything. Make sure all the dead ball stuff is done properly, right? So when the ball is dead, you make sure that you do everything. If they're advancing the ball, you advance it to the proper spot. Make sure you adjust the shot clock. If the shot clock has to go from 24 to 14 when they're advancing the ball, all that stuff is important. It's not about us. We have to check our ego, and we have to have the intestinal fortitude to make the call or correct no call. A lot of people think that the best officials, what they do in the last dying seconds of a game is they put the whistle away, right? You've heard that expression? Oh, they put the whistle away. That's not the referee's job. The referee's job is to have the intestinal fortitude, the guts, to make the correct decision. And sometimes the correct decision is not blowing the whistle. It doesn't mean that you put the whistle away. It means based on what the play that occurred, there was no foul. So we didn't blow the whistle. But if there is a foul, like if it was a foul in the second quarter, it's a foul with 5 seconds left in the game. And that's what you're not putting the whistle away. You want, if you're in a situation where you have to referee a game, and it's the dying seconds and it's a close game, you want to think, if they showed that on TSN tomorrow morning, it would show that I made the right call. I made the right decision. Either I didn't make the call because it was correct, or I made the call that the correct decision was made. That's how you kind of want to, I just made the right call. You don't put the whistle away. The reason I think that expression exists is because the last thing we want in a close game in the dying seconds is a marginal call. Right? Think of it, if you have a tie game and it's the last possession and somebody's going to the hoop and there's a little bit of contact and they miss the layup, tie game, we're going to overtime. Nobody is going to be upset with going to overtime. So you don't want to make a marginal call. But if somebody goes to the hoop and they clearly get fouled, then they deserve to shoot 2 free throws. So keep that in mind as well. I'm going to do one more thing, Jeff, and then I'll give it over to you. Are there any questions about what we just talked about? Yes.
I never understood how the possession arrow works. Does it go in the direction of the team that wins the jump ball or the other way?
Like I said, this isn't a rules snipe, but the first team that gets possession of the ball, the arrow goes towards the other team. And the arrow always points in the direction that they're playing, not the direction of their bench. So if one team is going this way and they have the first possession of the game, the arrow should be pointing the other way. And then every jump ball from then on, or the start of every quarter, the arrow switches. As I said, I just made a comment before you arrived that FIBA has all kinds of resources, so people don't have to wait for a rules session. People can study the rules anytime, and that's a good example. And when you study the rules, it's not like reading from page 1 to page 100. It's like that, thinking like that. Well, I wasn't sure. So you go to the index and you find a section on possession arrow, and then you read that small section. Now, that's how the possession arrow works. And if you don't know like what the penalty for a technical foul is, you go to the index and you find technical foul, you go read that section. Okay, so that's the penalty for a technical foul. That's how you study the rules. You don't read it from page 1 to page whatever, I don't know how many pages there are, because then it becomes boring reading. You think of situations, you referee situations where maybe you're not 100% sure, you go into the rule book. And if reading the rule book is not always 100% accurate, or it's always accurate but it's not 100% understood, then you ask questions. There's lots of people that you can ask. So I'm gonna take, maybe 15, 20 minutes just to talk about, so one of the things we've talked about today, we introduced trust your partners. Well, it's not introduced because I know a lot of you would know what that means already, but, we've talked about it, but I wanna talk about it in a different way, perhaps in some ways a more advanced way. So, in the simplest terms, trusting your partner means that if there is a call to be made in this area, the trail will make the call. And if I'm the lead and it looks like this player traveled, well, I'm not gonna blow the whistle. Partly because I shouldn't have been looking there in the first place, I should have been looking in my primary coverage area. And secondly, like, a travel is not worth making a call from a long distance. If my partner misses a travel, that's not the end of the world. So we have to trust our partners, because if we start doing that, then I start calling over here, and then my partner starts calling over here, and it's just the Wild West. Everybody's blowing the whistle all over the place. There has to be a system that we follow. But the system is not like 100%. So this is generally speaking like the leads area. Right? So this is generally speaking the leads area. Up to here. And then the trail has kind of everything here. And this would be shared for the most part. This would be shared as well. So we're not going to make a ton of long distance calls. But there are times where we're going to have to reach out of our area to make a call. Why? Because as we talked about, for the good of the game. Right? The game is more important than us. And in some ways, that could mean that there could be times where I'm going to make a call in front of my partner, and it's because I trust my partner. And you might think, that doesn't sound right, but I'm going to show you a couple of examples where the distance between the officials is not always 100%. So I didn't know if I was going to have video, and I'm not even sure I wanted video, so what I did, instead of taking video, I just took some stills. I just took some pictures and because it's easier sometimes to talk about. If I had video, I would be pausing them most of the time anyway, so we'd probably be in the same boat. So I just took some pictures, and we're gonna talk about different things, and you can think about what does this mean. Now, in some of these stills, there are 3 officials, like there are here, and some of them there are 2 officials. I'm gonna mostly talk about it as if, like even though there are 3 officials here, 1, 2, and 3, I'm gonna talk about this as if there were only 2, because that applies to more of us then. So, I don't know from the back if this is clear, but we have an official here, so this is the lead, and if we 2-person, there would be an official kind of like here. Maybe I'm gonna use this. And we have, can everybody see what's going on here? There's a player in red with the ball, and he's being triple teamed. So there's defender number 9, not white 9. There's a defender with 2 hands up. Can everybody see that? Right? There's a defender there with 2 hands up. 2 of the defenders are reaching for the ball as that red player is sort of stepping through. So, a couple of questions for you. Even though some of you don't have a ton of experience, so which official has primary coverage on that play? Which official is primarily responsible for the ball? You can put your hand up if you want to answer. It's either the lead, well here it would be lead, trail, or center, but is it the lead or the trail? Yes?
Baseline.
Yes, so the lead is the official on the baseline. So the lead has primary coverage in that. And then the other 2 officials are refereeing technically off the ball. So, I don't have a second picture, by the way. I don't have a video. So what's going to happen is, at some point, these 2 players are going to get the ball clean, or they're going to foul the red player. And if there is a foul, who should make the call? Again, put your hand up if you think you know the answer. If there is a foul, and we don't even know if there is a foul because we don't have a video, which official should make the call? The lead. So you're saying this official is the one that should make the call. Which sounds logical, it's not the right answer. Joel?
The win, because the lead can't see it's behind.
Yes, so if there is an official here, it should be this official. In this case, it should be either this official or this official. So, you might say, well, if I'm here and I make a call, I don't trust my partner. Actually, I do trust my partner. I trust that my partner realizes that he doesn't have a good look at it, right? He realizes that all he can see is this guy with his hands up and the back of this. He only sees the backs of players. So he's going to say, I can't see very well. Now I might move, I could take a step, right? On the baseline, you could take a step, maybe you'll see better. But this all happens very quickly. By the time you take a step or two, this play could be over. So trusting your partner means that I trust that my partner is not going to guess. So if my partner is not going to guess, if there is a foul, my partner has to trust that I will make the call even though I'm farther away. And that's where sometimes trusting your partner means more than just who is closer and who is farthest away. It goes back to, so this will introduce all the things we talked about with Ryan 2 weeks ago. We talked about open angles and closed angles. So it's closed to one official. It would be open to this official. Now this is me, by the way, here. I probably don't have a great look at this from there. But I have a better look than the official who's on the baseline. So if there is a foul there, it should come from the outside official, the trail official. And so trusting your partner can mean all kinds of different things. So that's an example. People are reaching in. Now, 30, 40 years ago, that official would automatically have blown his whistle. And he would have gone to the table and he would have said, that's a foul for reaching, right? They reached in, which they are absolutely doing. They are reaching in, aren't they? Two of them, they're reaching in. They would have called a foul and they would have called it reaching in. We didn't care if they actually got the ball or the arm. We just like, well, it reached in, that's bad defense. In 2024, you can't referee that way. In 2024, everything is based on reality. There's video of everything. Your 11U game that you're refereeing, the parents have their phones out. They're videotaping the game. And you could be on YouTube the next day. Like if you screw up something, you might be on YouTube the next day. Look at this call. This is terrible. You know, my 11-year-old was going to go to NCAA to play Division I, and now because of this call, there goes his scholarship. So that's how we referee today. We referee based on not they reached in, did they get the ball or did they foul? Another example. So here we're going to have 3 different images. So they're in sequence. So this is a game at RNS. In St. John. So a typical play we see this a lot. This is number 11 White. He's just gathered the ball, so he started from here. He dribbled, he's just gathered the ball. The primary defender is blue 8, who's kind of sideways. He's beating his defender. We're going to go to the next one where we have two pictures. So as the play continues, number 11 goes for a layup. Number 8 reaches in, trying to knock the ball away, steal the ball. And in the third picture, we've got the white player going, oh my God, I got fouled. We can see the ball on the floor. I don't know if you can see the ball on the floor. And we have only one referee that we can see in the picture. There are 3 referees here. You can only see one official. It's the official who is the lead on the baseline. So let's imagine, since we can't see the other 2 anyway, let's just imagine that there are 2 officials. So we have one official there, and then the other official would be up here, probably closer to number 10. And if we're the trail official on this play, we kind of see what the camera sees here, right? The camera is looking, we see 11's back, we see 8's back, we see someone going for the ball coming loose. The white player certainly acts like they've been fouled. So if you're the trail official here, so if you're the official you're here, and you see a play like that, and you had to guess, would you guess that that's a foul, or would you guess that that's not a foul? What would you guess? Anybody want to try? Anybody know the right answer to that, if you had to guess? Yes, sir?
If the hands of the defender is down or up.
Yeah. Well, the hands are, can't really see the hands, can you? They're reaching in for the ball. There is a simple answer, yes?
I guess there's no call, someone else's.
You're close to the right answer, yeah. When I say what would you guess, the answer is, don't guess. It's a trick question. Don't guess, right? So you're watching the back of the play, like we're seeing on this picture. We really don't know. If we guess, we're guessing. We got a 50% chance of being right, right? Because it's either a call or no call, so that's one, like head or tails, 50%. But 50% accuracy in refereeing is not high. I don't want 50% of my calls to be accurate. I want a high percentage of that. This official right here has a perfect look at that play. So that official probably has a 95% or better chance of getting the right call. Could still get the call wrong, but probably not, because the play's going towards them. He can see the hands of the person who has gathered the ball to go up. You can see the hands of the defender. You can see the amount of body contact. We're looking at still pictures here, so you might say, well, 8 is bodying up 11. But in a picture, it's hard to tell how much body contact there is. Body contact by itself does not constitute a foul. It depends on the amount of body contact, what it does. So don't guess. Let the official, and if you'll notice in that bottom picture, the ball is on the floor. Has the official called the foul? Not yet, unless they're really slow. Chances are they've decided that that's not a foul. So trusting your partner means that if I'm the official who's looking through backs, I'm not going to guess. I'm going to trust that my partner is going to make the right call. And we have plays like that happen all the time in games. People go into the hoop, people are reaching in. So we're not going to get them all right, but if we can think in terms of like this, we can get more of them right. Here's another example. So this is a quick turnover and another sequence that we have to trust our partner. So this is a two-person game. This is the Hoop Classic from last year, Riverview High and McNaughton. Right here, the player in white has just stolen a pass, and everybody starts to run down the other end. Right? The black team has turned over the ball, and now we're heading the other way. We've got two officials. One official here who's really slow, trying to follow, and one official here who is not in a great starting position, but that's not his fault that he's there, because he wasn't expecting a quick turnover. So we go down the other end. A second later, the player who stole the ball is now here. He's been dribbling the ball. The official is there. I know the picture's not clear, and he's going to bounce it to number 14 White, who's there. Those pictures don't really matter. It's this part that really matters. We just had a bounce pass to 14, and 14 goes up for a layup, and there's two black defenders, but really one who is, this is actually the determining play in terms of if they're a foul or if they're not a foul. So we have to trust our partners. So trusting our partners means that this person is in a terrible spot, and it's not his fault. He just got stuck in transition, and if you notice, like here, he's like, I'm going to try to get to the baseline, and then it's like, actually, I'm not going to get to the baseline in time. I'm actually going to stop or slow down here. So he kind of stops, which is not a bad move, by the way, in terms of refereeing. Like, the ideal situation here is if you were able to get to where it says the H there, where Chargers is, if you could get to that spot before the players get down the court, you would have a great look at this. But I don't know if there's anybody in this room who runs fast enough to get there. I know most of us can't, for sure. So what he did is he stopped. So what does this have to do with trusting your partner? What this means is this official who is here has to trust that if there is a foul here, and he doesn't see it, the official who is really slow coming up, we still don't see him in the picture, he's still here, but who's coming up the court and who's looking at the play, that official will call it. You have to trust that instead of guessing, I'm going to assume that my partner who's really far behind but has a good angle will make the call if necessary. And if you do that, you'll probably get the play, well, probably, not 100% sure, but you'll probably get the play called correctly. If it's a foul on the hands, it's hard to tell, because nobody's in good position there to see the hands. But if it's body-to-body contact, like we see here, the trailing official has a pretty good look at this. And the trailing official has to trust that the reason he doesn't blow the foul is because he's waiting to see if I'm gonna blow the foul, right? So if you're the trailing official and you're running up and you're behind, you're farther than your partner, and you see a clear foul at the basket, but you're like almost like you're kind of like center. You're in transition. You're at center. You're really far away. It's a clear foul, and you're like, oh well, my partner didn't call it, so I'm not going to call it. That's not how it goes. I have a open look. I can see the angle. I can see the body-to-body contact. My partner cannot. This has to happen in seconds. This sequence, I took 4 pictures. When it started, it was 2:07. It's now 2:05. That happens in 2 to 3 seconds, from the time the ball got stolen to the time they got to the other end. In those 2 or 3 seconds, the officials have to run as fast as they can to get to the best spot they can, and they have to be thinking, what do I see, and what can my partner see? And if my partner can't see anything, I might have to make a long distance call. If I'm this official, and there is a foul, and the whistle comes from here, I'm not going to my partner and say, what are you doing? Like, I was closer, why'd you call it? I'm saying, thank God you called that, because I couldn't see a thing. I didn't have an angle. I had a closed look, you had an open look. But, if we're just in the habit of calling all over the place, right? What if the official was on the baseline and was in perfect position, and then I still call it from the long distance? That means I'm not processing all these things. Are you going to be thinking all those things in your first couple of years of refereeing? No, but you can do it quickly. Like Ryan Langdon, who was presented a couple weeks ago, he's been refereeing less than 10 years. How long has he been refereeing? I don't know, 7 or 8 years. One of the best referees in the world. Like if you work at it, you can process it very quickly. And one more. This is not from Crandall or from. This is the WNBA finals that happened a couple days ago. Couple other sequences. So again, obviously, if it's the WNBA, we've got 3 officials. We're going to imagine that we only have 2. We have an official here. If this was 2-person, that official would probably be on the other side, but whatever. We're going to imagine there are 2 officials. The trail, and there is a lead there. We can't see the lead official. And we're going to have a block charge call. So, sequence that happens a lot. You get a player here, catches the ball on the perimeter. This defender goes out towards the dribbler, and she beats the dribbler. Right? So what ends up happening is Bridget Carlton, Canadian, by the way, Canadian Bridget Carlton, number 6, she's going to help, and she's going to get in position to try and draw a charge on the play. And there's a third picture to see what happens. What's really important here is that we have to referee the defense, and we have to trust our partners. So when the ball is on the perimeter, if I'm the lead official down here, my job is not to look at the ball. Right, Sam? When you're on the baseline, your job is not to look at the ball. Your job is to find which defenders might give you trouble. So 2 weeks ago, Ryan said that. I said, when you're refereeing, you find the defenders that could get you in trouble. And in this case, the defender could get your officials in trouble with number 6. This defender here, they're more worried probably with the 3-point shooter. This defender here. So there's not much going on here. Like if you're refereeing from here, nothing's going on. But a second or 2 seconds later, there's going to be a big call to be made. And it's because number 6 is going to get in position to try and draw the charge. So as they drive, they beat their defender. So he's refereeing this defender. The lead is looking at that defender. And what are you looking at? If you're the lead, what are you looking at? you're looking at the defender and you're looking at the feet. In this case, partially because there's a semicircle, like a restricted area, most of our gyms don't have that. But even if there is no restricted area, you're looking at the feet because if a defender wants to draw a charge and they're moving this way, which is what she does, if the shooter, if the ball carrier jumps in the air and their feet have left the air, and then I move in, that's too late, right? Even though I get the contact on the torso, that would be a block. If I can get there first, legal guarding position, and then they jump and they hit me in the torso, that's a charge. The only way to referee that correctly is you have to pick up the defender really early. So, as a referee that's here, you have to trust that my partner will referee what's at the top. I'm going to focus on the help defender. And here, the help defender is waiting for the contact to occur. Now, let's go back here. Look at her feet right there. You see her feet? Look at her feet in the next picture. Are the feet in the same spot? No. They've moved from, in that split second, she probably took one more step this way. And then, so when she took that step here, it's important that the referee see, did they come here before the blue shooter jumped in the air? And you don't have to be in the WNBA to have to referee these types of plays. Doesn't matter what level, somebody's going to try to draw a charge. Somebody, and if I'm the referee here, I can be a veteran referee, or I can be in my first year. If there's a big charge, I don't have a fourth picture, by the way, but you can imagine what happens. They both go down to the floor, like it's a fairly big collision. They both go down to the floor. So you're going to have to blow the whistle. And what will happen is if you were watching the dribbler all along, like if you're here and you're watching the dribbler all along, and you're like, she's not taking a three-point shot. Oh, she's driving, she's jumping in the air. Oh! And then all of a sudden, all you see is this. And you're like, oh, I didn't expect that. I was so focused on her, I never saw her coming over to try and draw the charge. But if you watch the defender referee the defense, you will see this, and then it's almost like you're going to know what the call is before the contact occurs. You're like, okay, yeah, sorry. And then you can make the correct call. So those are concepts that are partly related to, I wanted to try and bring in different things from 2 weeks ago, because 2 weeks ago, we talked about refereeing the defense, close and open looks, distance versus angle. So bring all those things in terms of trusting our partners. Hopefully, I think that's it. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it will make sense to many of us. It might be a little complicated for others. It's not that it's complicated. There's nothing complicated. We're not doing quantum physics here. But it will be complicated to apply it. Like if you're starting out, you're going to have a hard time applying that in games. But if you have that idea that, oh, I referee the defense, I find the defenders, you can, even in your first couple of years, you can start to do a lot of that. Questions? Like I said, I've got a third section, but I know you're tired of listening to me, and I know Jeff has a few things that he can go over. The third section, I can do it another night, I can email it to you, whatever seems to be the appropriate thing to do at the time. Is that for you? That's mine. Did you give me that thing that goes with that? I only use the laser, I actually don't.
was the slow guy.
No, you weren't in there.
What was it?
The one that was really slow, that I joked about in the lab, that was me. That's why,
Oh,
that's why I was
that was
making
me.
that's why I was making the extra jokes. It was me, Kevin Henson.
I know it was Kevin on the other side. I thought I did that game.
One was Kevin and myself, and then the first official was like me, Ryan, and Mike. People from Moncton.
All right, how's everybody doing? I know these nights are long. There's just so much stuff, right? Refereeing's, it's not easy. Glad that there's a lot of people that are interested, and we don't expect you to be at that level that quickly, but all of this stuff is really good, really important stuff. The nights are long, we've got more as well. We really appreciate folks coming out, listening. Hope we pick up some things. For those who don't know who I am, I'm Jeff Smith. I'm the assigner for Southeastern New Brunswick. So as officials, your games have to be assigned. So basically the schools and the associations, they contact me, let me know their schedules and when they have games, and then I assign the officials to go to those games. I collect the fees from the schools and the associations, and I pay you those fees as well, with a small service charge, of course. So, no, trust me, nobody would do this job for free. We're Bill Ecorp. Bill did it for almost 30 years, I think. It's not the most thankful job. It's very difficult, a lot of stress, a lot of time, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration.
Apart from that, it's great.
Yeah, other than that, it's good. But it's a paid position, so hey, I can't really complain. I'm also one of your board members for NBA VO. There are 5 of us at the provincial level, so I sit on that board as well. Been officiating for 27 years at all levels except international. Been to all kinds of tournaments, had some great trips, and at the end of my presentation I'll talk a little bit about the levels and how you can progress through them. But it's refereeing, really, I mean, my refereeing career has been wonderful. Met so many great people, had a lot of fun along the way, and it's great. I try to recommend it to everyone. It's a hard vocation to get people interested in because sometimes people think, oh, the referees, I don't want to go out and have someone yell at me all the time. I don't want grandparents or coaches yelling at me, but overall, no, it's been great. So, this is about 45 minutes worth. I'll go fast though. Maybe we can get out a little early. So, I just want to talk about 3 things. Professionalism. We'll go through the assigning process with you, and a little bit at the end, I'll talk about those levels for everyone, for aspiring officials. So, first thing with professionalism. So, as referees, you got to realize we're the only ones in the gym that are being paid. We're not volunteers, we're paid. So if you think of that, when organizations are paying money, there's an expectation. There's a certain level of service that's required. We have to do our best. So I've kind of broken it down here into 2 sections. So professionalism at the gym, but also away from the gym. So don't forget that, right? We're not just officials when we show up to the gym and then when we leave the gym. We're officials beyond that as well, and we need to demonstrate that professionalism away from the gyms as well. So for the gym, arrive on time, make sure you're a good partner, look good, take pride in your appearance, be polite in your interactions with people, don't show up to a game if you're emotional, if you just had a fight with your girlfriend or friend or something, or spouse. All that stuff, you need to check that, right? Because when you step on that court, your mind has to be clear. You've got to make proper decisions. We want officials to be in control and confident, but not to the point where you're arrogant or you come off as cocky or condescending sometimes. So just be aware of that. Be approachable. Okay? There's nothing wrong with someone asking you a question. We don't want to be standoffish as officials. We're part of the game too. When you're away from the gym, So we use an assigning software, and a big part of being an official is using that software correctly. As an assigner, I need to know when you're available. I also need to know when you're not available. So the accuracy there, very, very important. Big part of professionalism in this job. So I'll kind of go through a little demo for you to show you that. Accept your assignments in a timely manner. So all your assignments come through by email. Stay up to date on your rules, your interpretations, your mechanics. Make sure you're practicing. How many people have ever stood in front of a mirror and looked at how they stop the clock or how they call a foul? Hey, everybody should be doing that kind of stuff. Or going to videotape you while you're doing your game and go back through and take a look at it after. Review your games. Go through calls, tough calls. Coach didn't like this call. Was the coach correct? Maybe I can learn something here. Maybe I did do something wrong. This is all part of being a professional and being in this job. Remember, we're being paid. The expectation is set very high. We owe the best possible service to the people who are paying our fees. Hey, keep your uniform clean. Might seem strange, but don't bundle your shirt up and tuck it in the corner, and then half an hour before your game you pull it out and it's all full of wrinkles and you go out on the court. We don't want to look like that. Keep it clean. I don't iron mine, I just wash it and hang it. It seems to work out fine. If you're a spectator at a game, remember you're still a referee. So we've had some incidents where officials might forget that they're part of this group. Maybe they're criticizing another official or yelling, things like that. Remember, you're part of this group, right? So be careful with those kinds of things. So remember, we're paid. Be professional in every way you can imagine. The software that I use for assigning, and we're getting into the thick of it already. So next weekend is probably as busy as one of our busiest weekends last year. So basketball has started. The associations are calling in games. I think I'm at probably almost 45, 50 games for next weekend. So we're there. I have to start assigning those games. Now obviously some of the newer officials, we may have an opportunity for you to work in some of those games. I have to look at the age levels and things like that. We might be able to use some of those games like U11 if there's any to get you out to give it a try. With an experienced official, of course. I'm not going to put you out there, 2 13 or 14-year-olds. You'll always have someone with a lot of experience. So this process of assigning games is very important. And I don't do anything with the telephone. Okay? Everything is done through this software application. Most of you probably have an account already. If you don't have an account, you will. Assigning games is the primary use of that particular software, and the only way I can assign you games is if you make yourself available. So for next weekend, if there's people who are eligible to referee and you want to referee games on that weekend, you need to go in and make yourself available. And I'll do a little demo to show you how to do that. The software is very user-friendly, doesn't take long to figure it out. If I'm trying to assign games and you haven't put your availability there, technically, I don't see you. However, I can go in and override if I text you or something and say, hey, are you available for this game? You're not showing available on Horizon. Someone would say yes. I can assign them the game. I can override them. It's not my preferred way to do it because it's inefficient, right? That extra text, waiting for the text to come back when the official should have been marked available if they were available. This is part of your professionalism as well. Okay? Remember, we're paid, so your availability, very, very important. So a couple of things with availability. 2 scenarios. If you are available to ref, but not showing available in Horizon, this puts undue strain on your fellow referees. Can someone explain that to me? Why is that? if you are available to referee, but you don't update your availability in Horizon, how does that put undue strain on the other people in this room, your fellow officials?
They have to do more games.
Exactly. If I have 60 games to assign and I have 30 officials versus 20 officials, okay, those 20 officials have to pick up those extra games. So if you're available, but you're not showing available, you're putting undue strain on the rest of the referee group, okay? We want people to referee games, okay? Our zone is super busy. We're expecting about 2,500 games this year, okay? That'll be an increase over last year. We pumped through about, this year it's gonna be close to about $200,000. It's gonna come from associations, through me, back to you guys, okay? We are a professional organization. We are super busy. We need refs to work. Now, if you're old and crippled like me, I can't work. I can't work the number of games that Mr. Fitness here, Neil Boyce, works, okay? If you're available, ready, able, we want people to work games, okay? And there's gonna be so many games, you can do as many as you want. The second one, if you're not available to ref, but you show available in Horizon, this puts undue strain on me. Do you understand why? Give me an example, Sam.
If I have availability on Saturday, Sunday, and you assign me some games and I don't, maybe not notice it, and then I'm not available, I gotta kick it back to you and you gotta find someone else.
Right. And trust me, on busy weekends, all available officials are working. So when Sam says, Jeff, I can't do those games, I go back into the list to try to find someone that is available, and it's empty because everyone is already working. Okay, so now I have to rearrange other games. I have to start getting on the phone or start texting, and all of a sudden, what should be 25, 30 hours of work in a week turns into 50 and 60 hours a week. Okay? I don't get paid enough to be working 50 or 60 hours at this stuff, so I need your help with that kind of stuff. So, two scenarios. If you're available, mark yourselves available in Horizon and expect games. If you're not available, mark yourself out, and I want to be able to trust that. Please be responsible and considerate to me as your assigner, but also to the other people in the group as well. Very, very important. Hey, you must keep a rolling 2-week availability. Things move so quickly. So, I got 2 games today for the weekend. It's Tuesday. The games are on Sunday. And this just happens regularly. Okay? I try to encourage the people who are booking refs, the associations, I try to encourage them to give us as much notice as possible. However, again, we're a service organization. I don't want to say no. I want to accept those games, and I want to assign them to you guys to go out and work them. So things happen kind of very quickly. So I just assigned all of the weekend games today. It's Tuesday. Hey, that's what? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's no game Saturday. They're all Sunday. That's 5 days notice. And typically, that's what I try to do. I try to give at least 5 days notice. That might not seem like a lot. You might say, well, Jeff, I need more planning. That's just not how the cycle of basketball and games and the assigning works. If I can give you more notice, I would, but typically, going into a weekend, I'm probably getting those assignments out maybe Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night for the following weekend, just depends how big it is. And the games through the week, I'm trying to get those out like Thursday night, Friday night for that following week. So there's not a whole lot of notice there, but if you keep a rolling 2 weeks of availability, and I've got a little bullet there about daily habits, it's not hard to do. Okay, you just have to recognize, hey, I'm an official. If It's all like I have this other job and I have responsibilities that go along with that job. So if something changes, so if you're available for the weekend, you change your mind. You get a tournament, you wanna go, or you have to go away and you're not gonna be available. So that should be a little trigger that day. Oh, I'm going away. I thought I was gonna referee. I'd better mark myself not available or Jeff's gonna get mad at me.
Which you will.
Yeah, and then I'll call JP and complain to him. Okay, so a little bit more about my process. I think I covered some of this. Email is the primary tool that Horizon uses. Horizon has a desktop application. You can put it on your Android phone and your iPhone as well. So you have it in 3 locations. When you are assigned a game, the primary way of communicating that is through email. So I know younger generation, sometimes not so good with email, or you've got so many email addresses that you don't even remember to check them. Make sure the email that you're using for Horizon, that you stay on top of it. Okay, always, please. If you have the app, you can set up notifications as well. Horizon is actually overkill. So if you have a game, so if I assign you the game, you get an email. If anything changes on that game, you get another email. When you are 3 days out,
I thought it was 4.
3 or 4 days out, you get an email. Reminds you that you've got a game coming up. The day of, you also get an email in the morning. It comes at 6 in the morning, or if you have your apps and you set notifications, I think those come at 4 in the morning.
Yes.
You can change that.
It's a little bit overkill, but obviously, being to your games is very, very important. But the primary tool, though, is email. I have everyone's cell phone number too, so you might get the odd text from me. But again, texting is a little bit inefficient. Using the phone is horribly inefficient. And this job, like I said, it's just not, the job just doesn't pay enough for me to be working 40, 50, 60 hours some weeks. So I have to find those efficiencies, and I need your help to help me do that. Okay, on busy weekends, typically any refs that are available are working. So I've got here this, I've used this Jenga example a few times. So let's say everyone in this room are all the people that are available for games coming up this weekend. I've assigned all of you games, all of you gyms. I hit the big publish button, which sends them all out to you. And then we start with this, oh, I forgot. I was supposed to mark myself unavailable. Now Jeff sent me games, but I'm not gonna be here this weekend. And then people start texting me. Again, you come back, next thing you know, okay, there's no referees, so now everyone knows what Jenga is, right? Ever played the Jenga game? So I build up the weekend, and it's like the big tall Jenga tower. And then one person, oh Jeff, I can't do games, okay, I'll pull a piece out here. Next thing you know, the whole thing collapses. I think there was one weekend last year where I pulled back all of the games that I had assigned, because I had so many holes everywhere that I had to fill, and it got so complicated to try to put everything back together. I pulled all the games back, and then I went through my list again, figured out who's available and when, and then created the new weekend and published everything out again. That was the 70-hour, I worked 70 hours at assigning that particular week. Plus I have a full-time job that requires 40 hours as well. Okay, not fun. So, on busy weekends, please be careful. I think everybody in here probably has a Horizon account. I don't know if you've had time to go in and look, but it's probably a good idea just to go in and take a look. This is my view as the assigner. Your view is going to be a little bit different, but some things of interest would be right here, your availability calendar. You can do this on your phone app as well. It's going to look a little different, but everything that you do on this desktop application, you can do on your phone. So this just brings up a calendar. You've got some commands across the top. Okay, the ones typically recurring availability. You can click on any of these days. You can do it by day. You can use this recurring availability if you know you have the same schedule, if you only want to be available on Saturdays and Sundays. If you know that you can't work on Wednesday evenings, then you can go and block every Wednesday evening. This tool, I'm not going to show you all the, just know that it is powerful enough to do whatever you need it to do. Okay? If you can't work in the morning, you can work in the afternoon, but you can't work at night, it'll do it. Okay? You can block off your morning, you can block off your night. You can show me that you're available. Typically your availability time, so let's say you're available, let's say at 6, and there's a game that starts at 6, that's how I view your availability. Okay, so don't count in like, oh, you know, I'm available starting at 6, but I need 30 minutes to get to the gym. Well, if that's the case, then, you know, put it for 6:30, not for 6. So if I see you're available at that hour, I take it as you're available to do a tip-off at that particular time. So this tool, very powerful. Get familiar. The default when you sign in the first time is all your days are blocked off. Okay. You can very easily flip that. You can go in and change all your days to available and then go block. You can do it however you want, whatever you're most comfortable with. Remember the two weeks rolling. Okay. Keep that up to date all the time. Some people, they have the whole year. Like I know JP's got pretty much the next
Not the whole year.
3 months probably.
Months, yeah.
So that's okay, but I know JP goes every day. When JP has a change or something, he's gotta go in Horizon. I mean, he also uses it for baseball, so he's very familiar with it.
Do you have a minimum requirement of games? Minimum per year you have to have?
100 games. Or you're out. No, I'm just kidding. We do not. That's why I just speak in general terms, right? If you're joining the association, there's all kinds of games. You can work as many as you want. If, for different reasons, you're coaching, I know your kids play. I had referees last year that worked 5 games, and then I had crazy maniac people that worked a lot of games. So yeah, I would just ask that if you're joining the association, that you know, that you're here, that you work games, but everybody's situation is unique. And I mean, honestly, if you do 5 games, well, that's 5 games that are covered for that day. And that's also 5 games that don't necessarily need to be canceled. Or when someone calls and says, hey Jeff, we got a tournament the weekend of November 13th, it's gonna be 15 games, and I reply back, sorry, you know, we already have 70 games booked that weekend, we don't have the capacity to take on an extra 15 games, okay? If we're active and we're working games, maybe I can say yes to that tournament, okay? Maybe we can, well, like I said, if they book 15 games, then I charge them for those 15 games. Where does that money go? It doesn't go to me, it goes back to all of you. So that's what I mean, like, there are just so many games. You can work as many as you want. When you do have games, you can go on this section here, this personal game schedule. So when you get emails, first of all, you have to action that email. You'll have to go in here and either accept the game or decline it. Okay? Hopefully we're not declining games, right? If we're being professional and we're keeping our availability up to date, everything should be as is, and we shouldn't need to decline the games and force the Jenga tower to fall to pieces and for me to lose my mind. Okay? Now, it happens, right? Nobody's perfect. I'm just asking you to try to be aware of that kind of stuff. What else is in here?
we always have to be thinking too, like, I'm sure everybody in this room, their schedule will change. Like, I can tell you what my next week looks like, but there's a good chance that something's gonna happen that's gonna change that schedule. So if my wife says, hey, Sunday night, we're going out with friends, then I gotta go, oh, Sunday night, no, I'm no longer available. I go in, lock that off. Then it saves Jeff assigning the game and then having the whole. So if we think along those ways, we'll avoid some issues.
I'll show you a couple more things in here. This homepage, usually if there's any messaging or anything, like right now, what's in here is we've got links to our other 2 clinics that we had. So if you missed those and you want to watch them, they're here on YouTube. These are our upcoming clinics. So just some general information here. Once you do start getting some games and you have your personal game schedule, you'll have some games listed here. If you ever want to know how much money you're making, you can come in. Now, obviously this list is way longer than what you guys would have as users. But you can go down and find a payroll report. Every one of these screens, you've got to get used to using sort and filter. Okay, the one that gets you all the time is dates. You might go in and say, hey, I had a game November 18th, but I don't see it. It's probably because your dates here in the filter might stop at like the 15th or something. So get used to using filters in all of these screens. You can run payroll reports based on dates. I'm probably going to do like 3, 4, maybe more, possibly more paydays for you. So typically the minor associations, I send the bills out, pay people before Christmas, and then afterwards there's usually 2, sometimes 3, it just depends how many games there are and how many new leagues there are and how much money, but that's kind of the cycle, right? In order for me to pay you, I have to get the money from those associations and the schools, so I've got to wait for that money to come in sometimes, but it's not like a job where you get paid bi-weekly, right? You're going to have to wait for some of your money, and then when you get the big, so just as an example for you young folks, we had high school students refereeing last year that made $3,000–4,000. Okay, so I did e-transfers to some students for $1,700. You might have to wait a little while to get it, and then when you do get it, you gotta have the discipline not to, blow it at wherever you get. Well, I should talk to the grown-ups too. Grown-ups have their vices too, right? Yeah, so if you're ever curious how to run your payroll, yeah, just remember that
Physical responsibility, that's another.
if it's $30, there's an 8% assignment fee on all of your games. Okay, so $30 is $27.60. Is that right? I don't know. I'm trying to do fast math here. Just keep that in mind, that a $30 game, there's 8% of that pays for this crazy, busy role. But I do it because I love you all. So, if you're doing the math, right? So last year we pumped through about $175,000 through. You can figure out what 8%, you can figure out how much money I make. I don't hide that in any way. Some people may think that's a lot of money, but the part that you don't see is the time, the energy that goes along with that. Yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes not. Sorry. Okay, payroll 3 to 4. I pay by e-transfer unless anybody objects to that. Sometimes I get very strange requests. E-transfer for this amount, this much in cash, and this much in a check written to this person, like, I don't ask questions, right? It's their money, I'll pay it however you want.
I want my wife to know.
Yeah. If you ever wanna see, so,
Give her your password for.
remember how I do it, right? All the schools and the associations contact me for games. I post the games in Horizon. If you ever want to see the games that I've posted in Horizon, you can go in and see those games. This is all. You're only going to see the games that I've entered. Okay, my inbox is buried right now. I've got about 30 emails that I have to go in and put games in. However, there are games in there now. I want to show this from someone else's view, your view. So if you go on my game schedule, okay, you can do this in the app or on your phone. Okay, my game schedule. Click on that, and then this icon at the top, this folder that says public. If you click on that, any game that I've entered into Horizon, you can see it. So if you're thinking, hey, maybe I want to referee some games this upcoming weekend. Maybe I'm in a tournament at Northrop Fry and there's younger games going on. Maybe I can ref something, right? You can see all of the games that I put in here. Remember, get good at using your search and your filter. 2,500 games, right? It can get pretty lengthy.
I like to use the future games filter, you see what's coming up.
Yeah, so you don't see all the history.
Yeah.
Okay, anytime you don't know, or if you think Horizon can do something, or you're curious, you can use this Get Help. There's a great library of information. So if you're curious, hey, I wonder if Horizon will do this, or how do I do this? You can use your Get Help. You can send me a text, call me, whatever. I don't mind helping out in those situations. Okay, change gears a little bit, and I think we're going to finish early, but long nights. I know we've got a lot of newer officials in here. In Canada, across all provinces, we have what's called we refer to it as NOCP, National Official Certification Program. Okay, it goes from level 0 all the way up to level 5. Okay, level 0 is when you're just starting out. If you are interested in progressing through those levels, I would highly recommend it. Okay, typically if you want to referee high school basketball, we're going to want you to have at least your level 2. If you want to referee college basketball, we want you to have your level 3. That level 3 would entitle you to go to summer tournaments. Anybody play B&B or anything? You know, those U15, those U17 teams that always go away on those trips. Okay, we go away on those trips too as referees. Okay, so if you want to do that stuff, or if you want to do college playoffs, things like that, we're looking for level 3. National college university tournaments, level 4. And if you want to referee internationally, you need a FIBA license, and that's our level 5. To referee here locally when you're just starting out, okay, don't worry about the levels. If, however, you are interested in progressing through those levels, it costs a little bit of money. You've got to invest some time, some effort, some education. It's money well spent. Again, we don't expect, right? You can referee here locally in your zone as much as you want. I got as many games as anyone can handle. If you do want to move to the next level and you want to start getting high school games, we're going to start looking at this, okay? And the demands on you, your education, your mechanics, everything has to be a little bit sharper, right, to referee at the high school level. So I'll just quickly show you. It's a bit complicated, but most of us in the room, recreational referee, if you started within the last 3 or 4 years, you're probably sitting at this level. If you've been refereeing for a while, you were probably grandfathered when we brought this system in. So you were probably grandfathered in at either your level 1, I mean, didn't we used to have A and B in New Brunswick? I think, yeah, so A and B, if you were a B, you were grandfathered as a 1. If you were an A, you were grandfathered as a 2, I think. And then we had some grandfathering for these levels as well. If this is something, so if you just want to referee locally, that's fine. You don't have to worry about any of these levels. We'll teach you, we'll coach you, we'll get you better. As soon as you want to move up, talk to me, talk to Mike, and we'll have a lot more information about this. Okay, if you want to go do those summer tournaments, okay, there's a path that you get put on, and we can help with that. And if you don't want to do it, that's cool too. Okay, and the last thing I want to show you is this website right here. Don't know if this has been mentioned yet by JP or Ryan yet. I heard you mention about rules. This is a brand new website. So our association, we've kind of been notorious for, you know, the rules are kind of everywhere, and you know, in one site it's, oh, but the rules aren't updated there yet. Those are the old rules, or those are the old interpretations. This site is awesome. So, refereeing.fiba.basketball in English. This is available in Spanish, German. FIBA is international basketball, so these are our rules. So if you just look in the toolbar here, news, features, rules, material library, IREF tools. Okay, I also have I have two apps on my phone. Okay, I have a mini version of this site on my phone. Okay, it's called the IREF app. This is an iPhone. Search for it in the App Store, find it, or in the Play Store, it's there too. FIBA IREF. You have all of your rules and everything right on your phone. So you made a call, you go in at halftime, you're not sure, oh, what's that rule, right? It's on your phone. You just go and find it. So this site is kind of the full-blown version, but then you have your tools that you can download on your phone as well. So if you're looking for your rules, if you're looking for, so typically we have rules and then we have interpretations for rules. I don't want to scare everybody in the room, but our rules can get pretty complicated and pretty technical. So we have the rules, but then we also have, well, there's these interpretations for the rules as well. If you're real gung-ho and you want to get into all of that, by all means, do like JP said, right? If you want to understand a technical foul, you can go in the rules, find the technical foul. You can go in the interpretations, you can find technical foul. Read all through it. Get yourself all coached up.
If you're newer, be selective. There are going to be sections where you're like, oh, this isn't probably important. Like 2 weeks ago, we talked about correctable errors for a few minutes. If you're newer, don't worry about the correctable errors. Think about, what am I going to need to know to referee, like my first game? I'm going to need to know what the rule is for traveling. I'm going to need to know the basics, the violations, the jump ball, if I call a technical foul, what's the penalty? Those things.
Even the question about the possession arrow, I don't know where it came from. Most of the gyms that we referee in don't even have a possession arrow. So what we end up doing as referees, like we all have our own little system, right? So I keep something in my pocket, okay? If it's in my right pocket, that means that it's the light colored jersey. If it's in my left pocket, That's the dark colored jersey. That's how I do it. JP uses a different system. But it doesn't change the rule, right? But that's just how we would keep track of it because we don't have an arrow at tables in most of the gyms that we're at. Okay, questions? It's a long night, I know. If you ever need anything, let me know. Thanks to JP for going through all of that stuff. New officials were back here tomorrow night, and I know a lot of this stuff is, hard to deal with, okay? Tomorrow night for new officials, or newer officials, much more, we're gonna get into, positioning on the court, and what do I do after I blow my whistle, and that kind of stuff. So it'll be a lot more tailored to newer officials, and not so heavy like some of the stuff we've been doing. Okay, thanks for coming, really appreciate it.